As usual, after each Starship flight, SpaceX has to conduct investigations with the FAA. With Flight 4, SpaceX continues to make incredible progress, but some problems still persist. Will the FAA require another lengthy investigation? Maybe things will be different this time, which would be a good sign for SpaceX. However, SpaceX is now facing a new challenge. Why and how will the FAA and SpaceX's working process change? What new problems await SpaceX ahead? Let's delve into these questions on today's episode of Great SpaceX. Looking back at previous flights, especially Flight 1 and Flight 2, the FAA was considered a significant barrier for SpaceX on the path to launching Starship. However, after much criticism, the FAA seems to be gradually changing for the better. Since Flight 2, the FAA's investigation process has become extremely clear and fast. This improvement is also due to SpaceX greatly reducing the impact of their flights. By Flight 4, everything the FAA did was even more surprising. In the Flight 4 launch approval notice, the FAA revealed a change that will have a major impact on the procedures they and SpaceX follow after the flight. They stated that SpaceX proposed 3 scenarios that would not require a mishap investigation: failure of the vehicle's thermal protection system during Starship reentry, failure of the vehicle's flaps to provide sufficient control during reentry, and failure of the Raptor engines during the landing burn. The FAA approved these scenarios after analyzing the risks and confirming they met public safety requirements. During the flight, SpaceX encountered several major problems, including engine failure, heat shield loss, and flap damage. But let's analyze in more detail. During its recent flight, Starship lifted off with a failed engine on the B11 booster. However, this did not affect the subsequent steps for B11, such as reaching max Q, separation, hot staging jettison, and landing. While repairs and upgrades will be necessary to optimize flight performance, they shouldn't take too long. Therefore, I think the FAA can overlook the engine issue. The heat shield problem, however, remains a significant challenge for SpaceX's Starship despite their focus on improving this system. During Flight 4, many heat shields fell off and the remaining ones broke and melted slightly due to the high temperatures. According to Elon Musk, the falling heat shields caused the flaps to burn during flight, leading to a dramatic landing. Nonetheless, the heat shield overall protected the S29 through the entire reentry process, which is a notable achievement. Musk has stated that improvements will be made immediately for the next flight. Consequently, the FAA will likely assess the heat shield issue but may not conduct a mishap investigation. As for the flap, it has definitely garnered the greatest attention from the aerospace community after this flight, having been burned and severely damaged during re-entry. This also seemed to cause some problems, leading to S29 landing 6 kilometers away from the designated location. However, according to Elon Musk, this landing site was still within the exclusion zone planned before the flight, meaning it did not pose any risks to humans. He also stated that this was still a controlled landing thanks to the flaps and engines. The flap made an impressive effort by remaining attached to the ship until the end of the journey. Musk admitted he was surprised the flap could last so long, which demonstrates the advantages of stainless steel over other materials. He also mentioned that SpaceX will make adjustments to the flap by pushing it further toward the ship's leeward side to ensure reliability for future flights. In conclusion, I think the issue with the flap will also be reviewed rather than thoroughly investigated by the FAA. With the aforementioned analysis, the FAA's working process after Flight 4 is expected to be greatly shortened. This will certainly pave the way for Flight 5. Even if the FAA decides to investigate any of those 3 issues, I don't think it will affect the hopes for Flight 5 in the near future. Previously, the FAA had announced that they would allow SpaceX to conduct flights even if the previous flight's mishap investigation had not been completed. SpaceX will just need to ensure they meet public safety standards. This makes the next target, Flight 5, even closer, and everything will get even better with the prospect of continuous Starship launches. After Flight 3, the FAA considered a proposal to provide a launch license for Starship in the form of a portfolio, meaning one license for multiple launches instead of a single launch as currently. This approach has already been applied to the Falcon 9, allowing the rocket to launch with unprecedented frequency. Of course, we cannot predict all the variables that may occur in the future. Updates on the working process between SpaceX and the FAA will always be brought to you as soon as possible, but everything is getting better. So for that, please leave a like, share the video, and subscribe to the channel as to congratulate SpaceX on their recent success and motivate them to achieve more in the future now that the path has become easier. easier. However, as part of life, gaining one thing often means losing another. This time, the story involves the Texas government, where the Starship facilities are located. Firstly, we all recognize the positive impact SpaceX is bringing to Texas. Look at this image of Starship lifting off with a view from Mexico. It shows how fortunate Texas and the US are to have SpaceX and Starship. In a tweet about the Starship launch, Texas Governor Greg Abbott declared, "Elon Musk making Texas proud." Please leave a heart emoji in the comments to honor the great contribution of Elon Musk and his team. Indeed, SpaceX has come and turned the remote region of Boca Chica into a new aerospace hub. The arrival of SpaceX also brings and attracts a significant workforce, media organizations, and tourists, helping Texas's economy grow stronger. In return, the Texas government has helped SpaceX a lot with administrative procedures and promoting licensing agencies for SpaceX's Starship. However, not every agency understands the role of SpaceX and Starship. On June 4th, the same day the FAA issued the Flight 4 launch license to SpaceX, an environmental group announced its intention to sue SpaceX, claiming that SpaceX's ground system caused water pollution. This environmental group, called Save RGV, works in the Rio Grande Valley area of Texas. They announced the lawsuit against SpaceX on June 4th, citing the company's ongoing violations of federal law, specifically the Clean Water Act. Save RGV member Jim Chapman said SpaceX must stop breaking the law because the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality has failed thus far to enforce the law. Our local community must turn to the courts to ensure the protection of Boca Chica and its sensitive ecosystem. The lawsuit directly criticized the water deluge system that SpaceX installed at Starbase's OLM to minimize damage to the launch pad when launching Starship. The Save RGV group believes that this system discharges industrial wastewater containing metals, impacting an area within 1 kilometer around the launch pad. They also added that SpaceX does not have any permit from the local agency for that. This is quite confusing because the FAA previously assessed that this system did not have a significant impact on the environment. Their report stated that the deluge system is expected to be less than average summer rainfall event and would be unlikely to alter water quality. Currently, Save RGV plans to file a lawsuit against SpaceX in 60 days to seek penalties from federal agencies and potentially ban SpaceX from using the water deluge system or even launching Starship at the current facility. We can see how this will affect SpaceX. If the water deluge system cannot be used, SpaceX will have to redesign its system. Even other systems, like the flame trench, still require water. This will significantly slow down Starship's progress. At the highest penalty level, SpaceX may even have to leave Boca Chica, which would affect many parties. Environmental issues have always been a challenge for SpaceX in previous flights, often resulting in a slow launch licensing process. Incidents are inevitable with a developing project. Last year, in addition to the FAA, the FWS was an agency that posed many obstacles to Starship Flight 2. There was even a lawsuit against the FAA by a group of environmental agencies for granting a launch permit to SpaceX without completing all reviews. I agree that regardless of development, the environment must remain a top priority. However, it's evident that SpaceX is continuously improving its systems. Starship plays a crucial role for SpaceX, Texas, the US, and the aerospace industry as a whole. If Save RGV wins the lawsuit, they may achieve their environmental goals, but it could also have far-reaching consequences, even affecting themselves. Is it worth it for them to pursue this course of action? Let me know your thoughts on this as well as what you'd suggest in the comment section down below. Now more than ever, I hope for a resolution that benefits everyone involved. We must protect the environment while also advancing our exploration of space. Let SpaceX continue its efforts in that regard. Well folks, that's about it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, and as always, this has been Kevin from Great SpaceX. Until next time, keep looking up.